The following special presentation is brought to you by Caldor, your back-to-school headquarters, and Jenkins & Block, the disability law firm.
Good evening. Welcome to the second in an ongoing series of programs addressing local and global environmental issues. Earlier this summer, Fox 45 was the only local station to send a crew to cover the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. This trip allowed us to broadcast daily reports on a major international news story. It also allowed us to explore one of the world's most precious global resources, the Amazon rainforest. The special you're about to see is the result of that trip. We hope you agree that these rainforests are vital to mankind and deserve our protection.
It's one of nature's greatest masterpieces on this planet. And now, for the first time in its evolution, its very existence is at stake.
Dying rainforests. A clear-cut mistake, an Earthworks special produced by Fox 45, the news at 10.
These lush, dense forests in the Amazon region of Brazil grow in the largest area on Earth dominated by moist tropical climate. And through millions of years of evolution, this frontier has produced our planet's greatest diversity of life. Even modern man, in his infinite wisdom, has yet to discover all the plants and animals living here. And he has yet to discover all the answers that lie in this perfect natural arena. It was here 120 million years before man ever set foot on it.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Barnes. I'm about 5,000 miles south of Baltimore, Maryland tonight in the vast tropical rainforest of Brazil. Scientists have long described the rainforests or jungles as evolutionary theaters because of the vast number of plant and animal species that inhabit this region. Tonight we're going to show you just what's at stake in what some scientists are calling the Earth's last great survival kits. The Amazon rainforest is a long, long distance from Essex, Towson, and Ellicott City. And yet, what occurs here affects us all.
The vast lowland basin surrounding the Amazon River and its tributaries is often referred to as Amazonia, a rainforest covering 2.5 million square miles. The main source of life here revolves around the mighty Amazon River, a 3,900-mile-long body of water, contributing nearly 1/5 of all the fresh water discharged into the planet's oceans. A massive, almost unbelievable river system, a home for thousands of species of animal and insect life. The Brazilian rainforest also produces more than 18,000 plant species. In the Amazon rainforest, dense vegetation yearns for the sunlight. The treetops in this lush jungle, or the canopy, is so thick in places, only 2% of the sunlight actually reaches the ground. Amazonia's dry season takes place from April through early September. Photographer Scott Livingston and I visited the Amazon region in early June while the waters were receding and the rains were scarce. But these scenes clearly belie this region's potential for precipitation. The term rainforest was certainly no mistake. Precipitation here is nearly 3 times greater than the annual rainfall in North America. Amazonia's rainy season from November to March produces drastic but predictable changes in the water level, swelling the Amazon and flooding the forest. Some trees are submerged for months in water, in some areas leaving only the treetops exposed above the water surface. Amazingly, these trees will not die. The indigenous peoples of the Amazon call this part of the forest Igapo, or flooded jungle. During the South American summer, which is obviously Baltimore's winter, the snow melts in the Andes Mountains, flooding the entire Amazon region. Then the rain season begins, dumping an average of 120 inches on the Amazon region. Right now we're in about 10 feet of water, but by August or September the waters will have receded, and you can actually walk on what is now the Amazon riverbed. In fact, the rainforest generates half of its own precipitation. When the rain falls, it is absorbed by the dense foliage and then released into the atmosphere by plants. The evaporation forms clouds, it rains, and the cycle is repeated. This process also allows the vegetation here to produce 1/3 of the world's oxygen supply. which is why scientists call the Amazon rainforest the lungs of the earth. Deforestation poses a serious threat to this unparalleled ecosystem. The removal of these precious trees hinders a natural process that evolved into a perfect network of plants and animals while man was still evolving.
It is a concern. Once deforestation begins in the sort of economic environment that we have, it is somewhat difficult to think that we're going to be able to preserve it intact.
In some areas of the planet, preservation comes too late. And this problem is not solely confined to Amazonia. Although the Amazon rainforest is the largest in the world, other rainforests, seen here in green, can be found in tropical regions along the equator. Look now at the red regions. It shows where deforestation has destroyed other rainforests in Central America, Western and Central Africa, and massive deforestation has forever changed the landscape of Southeast Asia, like Vietnam and Malaysia, and island nations of the region like the Philippines, Sumatra, and Borneo. This type of exploitation continues daily around the world. The people who live in this immense tropical frontier are almost as mysterious as the jungle they inhabit. Living along the Amazon River are the river peasants, or caboclos, mostly people of Indian and European descent. In some cases, these settlers live and depend entirely on the Amazon River. By the standards of the Western world, it's an amazingly simple life, consisting of fishing or farming. The caboclos possess very little, and generally take from the jungle only what they need. The river native is quite content to have a boat for fishing and transport, and a riverside home, complete with hammocks. Anything else is just a luxury.
And I can tell you that the caboclo, the one who lives in the Amazon, is considered a lazy man, yes. But I personally think that it's just a consequence of the ambience that he lives, the place he lives.
Behind every caboclo's home, families have built small plantations, enabling them to survive in this primitive wilderness. The Chico Andreas family is making fajina, a type of flour derived from the root of the manioc plant. Younger members of the caboclos family will scrape the root by hand. The manioc root will then be ground. And then cooked over a crude mud brick stove. Once the fajina is done, it will be eaten at just about every meal.
Manioc is the basic food of the caboclo. Every family has to have manioc plantation, otherwise they can't survive.
The small caboclos farmer or rancher will take his produce and meat downriver to a nearby village to sell. Since money is scarce, trading is often a preferred custom in Amazonia. Life here is hard, but the Amazon River is their life, the only life they know. It's been this way for thousands of years, since the Indians, or the indigenous peoples, ruled Brazil's rainforest. The city of Manaus is the largest city in the densest part of the Brazilian jungle. This sprawling city, with a population of more than 1 million people, has undergone numerous changes in its very colorful past. Although rubber was the #1 industry here nearly a century ago, the rubber boom died once rubber trees were exported to Asia, where soil is more fertile. Reminders of Western influence when rubber reigned still remain. The famous Opera House, adorned with French ironwork, has been restored to its former splendor, a site seemingly out of place, and of all places, a jungle. The #1 industry in Manaus today is assembly work, mainly for electronic plants. The average salary, about $80 a month. The harbor in Manaus was built in 1906. 86 years later, it is still the heart of the city. Vessels of all types dot the massive pier, linking the city to the river. Most of these vessels are used to transport cargo, like harvested trees, or passengers downriver. An average trip will take 3 to 4 days, some as long as 2 weeks. For thousands of years, the Amazon has been and still remains this region's #1 highway. The river is also a provider of life for the city dwellers. Amazon river fish have long been a staple food here because of their relatively inexpensive price. To us, they're unusual-looking fish with unusual names. And yet, they've been a source of life here for centuries.
He says that the Amazon River is so important because it represents the fish for him to sell for the poor people, because the poor people here, they only eat fish because they can't afford to buy meat.
The Amazon's rubber boom days are clearly over. Brazil is now in the depths of a severe recession. But despite all obstacles here, there is an undying hope for the future in a region of this planet scientists call man's last hope.
Brazil, it's a nice people. I mean, I think they make miracles. They just, keep trusting that something will happen and the miracle will occur.
Most colonists in Brazil look for miracles in the Amazon region. They flee deplorable conditions in their home state and are drawn here with a mistaken belief they will find fertile land and vast improvement in their standard of living. The area they choose to settle is either clear-cut, uprooted, or slashed and burned. A popular and disturbingly efficient practice that has ravaged the Brazilian countryside.
That's the technique they use to plant, to burn. Why? Because they cut the trees and it's a bunch of branches and leaves and all that, and they're not going to clean. That's a too long work. It's just easy to burn it.
Once cleared, the soil in the rainforest is not very suitable for farming. The Caboclos farmer will use a plot of ground for only 2 to 3 years. After the nutrients in the earth are depleted, he moves on to another plot, only to slash and burn again. Other colonists in Amazonia have clear-cut massive tracts of land for cattle ranching. In many cases, the low-priced meat from these ranches is bought by fast food interests worldwide. This enormous exploitation of land is a problem plaguing scientists who constantly monitor this deforestation not far from Baltimore. These are actual images of the Amazon region taken from a NASA satellite. Scientists here at the Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt can see an alarming pattern taking shape on land just north of Manaus. The lighter colors indicate areas of the rainforest where man has left his indelible print of clear-cutting.
You might be able to fit much of downtown Washington, D.C. within this particular area. It's probably 4.5 to 5 miles by maybe 6 miles. So it's around 20 to 25 square miles of area that have been cleared for pasture and vegetation.
One of the areas hardest hit by this type of exploitation is the Brazilian state of Rondônia, about 400 miles southwest of Manaus. In this 1978 NASA satellite image, this is what the beginnings of a colonization effort looked like. A herringbone-shaped network of roads with massive forest land to the north. With an estimated 75,000 Brazilians emigrating to Rondônia annually, the difference in such a short span of time is staggering. In 10 years, the colonization has tripled. The roads built by ranchers and timber cutters have brought development to parts of the Amazon which would otherwise have remained untouched. And in several cases, this development has gone far beyond the boundaries of the law.
Brazil has a system of parks. Brazil has a system of conservation units. And they're on paper, and they have a government that really, I believe, sincerely wants to protect the rainforest, but they simply don't have the money. They do not have the money to be able to send surveyors out there to even mark the boundaries of the parks. But there's nobody there to either protect them or demarcate them, and this is a frontier area.
Just as much deforestation occurs out of sight. So does a side effect of clear cutting. Massive erosion allows hundreds of thousands of tons of topsoil to be washed into the Amazon, and the silt smothers several species of fish. Subsidized clearance of huge, unproductive cattle ranches was until recently responsible for most of the deforestation and soil runoff in Amazonia. Now, private industry, such as miners stripping the land for gold or iron, or timber cutters looking for hardwoods, have added to the death of life here. There are a half-dozen lumber mills in Manaus. This particular mill has a shipment of freshly cut timber arriving from upriver. Timber to be used for government and private housing in Brazil, but much of the hardwood will be exported to industrialized nations in Europe, the Far East, and the United States to be used for mulch, furniture, even toothpicks.
Yeah, it's important because he will keep his laborers, and the 180 people that cuts the trees there will be keeping working, and also his labor, in his factory.
But scientists say commercial logging in the rainforest will destroy an average of 17 trees just to get to one viable tree loggers can use.
The Brazilians will tell you, and they are not lying when they say that 15% of the rainforest has been cut, which means 85% of it is still more or less there. And you can fly over it for days, and it still is there. However, it is severely threatened, and the pace of occupation is incredible.
Environmentalists say that pace is causing as much as 55,000 square miles of rainforest worldwide to disappear each year. That's an area roughly the size of Florida. As these trees fall, so do certain species of animals that inhabit them. Half the planet's bird species live in Amazonia. So do thousands of insect species. Only a fraction have been identified. That means we are destroying animal species which have yet to be discovered.
First, we know that this place is one of the last place in the world that still may have this forest, this kind of rainforest. We must preserve it. It's for our survival.
The rainforest is not the only natural arena under siege. So is the air we breathe. Amazonia's rainforest acts as an air purifier, absorbing carbon dioxide from the air and converting it into oxygen. But by eliminating that air filter, scientists say mankind is putting a gun to his head.
The unnatural burning of the Amazonian forest, creating enormous clouds of smoke over the entire Amazon basin, reacting with various components of the atmosphere, creating ozone, elevated levels of ozone, and so on.
Scientists say it may be coincidence Baltimore had one of its warmest winters last year, but most scientists agree all the smoke fumes and exhaust humans generate will alter the Earth's climate. Brazil has the 6th highest per capita greenhouse emissions in the world.
Which is why the industrialized nations like the United States want the mass burning in the rainforest to stop. But the biggest threat to the global climate is the carbon dioxide emissions from the industrialized countries by the burning of fossil fuels, such as gasoline. The #1 polluter in this category is the U.S. Currently, this country is emitting nearly 1/5 of the total greenhouse gas emissions released into the Earth's atmosphere.
You're being perceived as having a government that's not supporting the basic principles of planetary life.
It's a perception that was running rampant in Rio de Janeiro earlier this summer. The history-making Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in June drew nearly 180 world leaders together to save mankind from himself. It was supposed to be a shining example of cooperation between the industrialized and developing nations. But rapidly, the United States became, in some people's eyes, the Black Knight of the Green Movement.
The whole world's watching! The whole world's watching! The whole world's watching!
Even before President Bush arrived in Rio for a 40-hour appearance, anti-Americanism was high.
The whole world's watching!
First, there were hopes the Climate Change Pact would be easily embraced worldwide. The treaty would force countries to control gas emissions heating up this planet. The original wording said it would force governments to control gas emissions, but the U.S. demanded the treaty be watered down to wording that would motivate, not force. Second, perhaps the highest hope rested on the Biodiversity Treaty. More than 2 years in the making, this treaty would force nations to protect species within their own borders, fostering a consciousness that man shares this planet and does not dominate it. Once again, the U.S. refused to sign.
The fact that we didn't sign that one treaty does not diminish, in my view, the U.S. leadership role. Sometimes leadership is not going along with everybody else.
The rest of the world is seeing America in a negative sense, probably or possibly because they want to be anti-American, but absolutely, definitely, and factually because we are down here not taking a leadership role.
Several leaders of the developing nations said Bush's comments were a disastrous political sellout. The fact the United States tried pushing the Amazon deforestation issue to the forefront in this summit didn't help either.
That is an ironic comment that the Americans are concerned about what's happened here as they are the main polluters.
It was kind of grievous to me to see Japan take the leadership, as a preeminent, I'd say environmental superpower, and the United States left in the dust because we blocked, as you know, firm action on almost every aspect of the Rio summit.
To save face, President Bush proposed increasing funds for international forest protection from $1.75 to $2.7 billion and upping the U.S. commitment from $150 to $270 million a year. A commitment to save the planet's rainforests, most importantly, Amazonia.
Obviously, people in the United States are going to benefit immensely if we have this huge CO2 processing factory in the Amazon.
Still, the indigenous peoples of Brazil don't think the U.S. is doing enough. And worse yet, they don't trust U.S. interests in the Amazon.
All the people of his tribes asking him if they make contact with the George Bush or not. And he said that until now they don't have any contact directly with the United States government.
These doubts are echoed worldwide because of our record. Between the tree cutting for development and growth and logging for the lumber and paper pulp industry, we have eliminated 90% of America's virgin forests. What virgin forests we have is primarily in the West, and logging is permitted on 2/3 of what remains.
We're selling our lumber in trees in the Northwest for prices below what it cost us to prepare the site for cutting. And a lot of those logs are going to Japan to be processed. We're taking people out of jobs. I think if we really had an environmental policy in this country that was aggressive, it would mean a lot more jobs than it would cost in jobs. There would be a net gain in employment as well as a better life for us all. But this particular administration has been a disaster.
Disaster is what these people tried preventing at Rio. They are descendants of Amazonia's first human inhabitants. Indigenous peoples representing dozens of tribes gathered in the Jacaparagua section of Rio de Janeiro, not far from the summit, as a show of unity. Ambrosio Marcus Cruz is a member of the Piratapoya tribe, a tribe that for centuries ruled the Amazon region when this area was home to at least 3 million Indians. Now the tribal population is slightly more than 200,000.
The desire of these people is to live in the Amazon without any without rules, without anything, like the Indian tribes used to live for many centuries.
Like the indigenous peoples, the industrialized nations want the rainforest to remain intact. These lush jungles are the only huge land masses left on this planet. But developing nations like Brazil are poor. Chopping the trees fuels immediate development and helps feed a growing population. Industrial nations may have to pay these southern countries to preserve their forests and promote sustainable development, extracting resources for profit, but not exhausting it.
The most beautiful song that was ever sung or the most beautiful dance that was ever danced could still be happening somewhere in the rainforest.
Environmentalists say if the world clearly knew the rainforest's potential for securing the climate and man's future, there would have been less rhetoric and more ink committed to treaties at the Rio summit, and these trees would remain forever. Nowhere on this planet is there a larger evolutionary theater of plant life than Amazonia. Up to 200 different species of trees can inhabit just 1 acre of forest land here. For thousands of years, the natives of the Amazon have practiced sustainable development, using only what is needed from the jungle to survive. Tribal peoples have made especially good use of the chemical properties of rainforest plants. Rainforest tribes have discovered hundreds of plants that serve as medicines, and they've been using them effectively against illnesses for thousands of years. Because of this ancient technology, 1 in 4 medicines that we use today contain some sort of ingredient derived from the rainforest. In the balmy tropical evening in the north side of Manaus, a primitive but effective pharmacy is open late into the night. Ana Silva is making a potion tracing back centuries. She's a medicine woman. Her prescriptions are filled from the very earth of the rainforest.
When people see herbs, they think it's something poisonous. You can't eat it. But no, there are numerous of various important plants that can use to heal, to cure someone.
Tonight, Silva is grating the root of the mungatataya plant and mixing it with the bark from the juta tree. Both are commonly found in the jungle. The result is an effective remedy used in treating the common cold, sore throat, even bronchitis. While we visited the medicine woman, she had just made an unusual concoction for a patient in her neighborhood. The heart of the banana tree, thinly sliced, covered with pure sugar. Over time, the honey extracted from this potion will help in treating asthma. Natural medicine shops are a common sight in Amazonia. Thousands of people come here to replenish their health without a prescription. Their confidence in certain rainforest plants far surpasses their tolerance for pills, caplets, or capsules.
He came here to buy mastruz that is also good for tuberculosis and also fix the back pain.
The astonishing versatility of these plants was finally discovered by the Western world and now can be found in pharmacies and hospitals worldwide. From the plants of the rainforest comes reserpin, a drug used to treat high blood pressure and nervous disorders, digitalis for heart failure, ipecac to induce vomiting if poison is ingested. A chemical compound from a rainforest vine is used in birth control pills. Tribal peoples have had centuries of trial and error, discovering which plants cure and which can kill. If man keeps killing these plants, he could be destroying a precious antidote to the most perplexing diseases of our time.
And of course, if they burn a vast, long area, of course this will provoke, destroy and take out the chance of discovering a cure for, who knows, AIDS.
Medical researchers say rainforest drugs have shown promise in the treatment of Parkinson's and heart disease, sickle cell anemia, and several types of cancers. All the unanswered questions about these plants has prompted the Cancer Institute to say destroying the rainforests would be a major medical setback, and that man could very well be killing off one of nature's greatest survival kits. Scientists say roughly 15 to 20% of this vast greenhouse is already gone. But there are some positive signs worldwide. Man is starting to realize what's at stake. In Central America, former coffee plantations, long abandoned, are now rich with rainforest vegetation. Scientists discovered the rainforest recovered 10 times faster than normal reforestation. In Malaysia, the government now requires selective foresting. Lumber companies now cut down only the trees they process. Currently, only about 2% of the world's rainforests are off limits to development in conservation zones, parks, or reserves. Clearly, these zones must be dramatically increased to protect plant and animal species from extinction and to maintain the ecosystem. In addition, the Western world's underwriting of deforestation in the form of cattle ranching, lumber, and mining must involve sustainable development to save this land for future generations of all life. To do this, man will first have to come to an understanding with himself.
The good news amid all these warnings is it's not too late, but only if man finds an effective way to develop this land without seriously jeopardizing the other forms of life that hold the very key to man's existence. Millions of years of prehistoric history have already proven the Earth can exist without man. Now it's up to man to take action so that in the future, man does not give this planet a chance to prove it again. I'm Jeff Barn in the Amazon rainforest with photographer Scott Livingston. Good night.
Dying rainforest, a clear-cut mistake, was brought to you by Caldor, your back-to-school headquarters, and Jenkins & Block, the disability law firm.